Hey everyone, Amarathi here, and I'm back with another video. I'm going to be covering some of the stuff that you may have missed in the most recent patch notes. It's the 1.0 patch notes for last Epoch. The game is finally out in just, hours from now. I am so sure that if you've been keeping up with the news, you're probably going to hear a whole bunch of information of the new stuff that's coming with 1.0, the Falconer, the Warlock, the factions, all the new systems and stuff like that. I'm not going to focus on that because there's probably been a whole heap of coverage. I'm sure you can find your favorite content creator that's not me covering that, or you can just go read it yourself. What I want to focus on is some of the big changes to the endgame systems and the top builds and stuff like that you may have missed if you weren't reading this gigantic document. I'm just going to pull out some of the stuff that stood out to me. And to start off with, I'm going to be looking at the endgame rebalances. So two major end game modes. One is Arena, the other one is the Monolith Corruption system. So let's start with the Arena because that's quite simple. They've basically just done an Arena squish, which is really good. If you've done Arena in the past and you've played a really good build, it can be a huge time sink to put all that time and energy into an Arena, even if you have a really good build. So they're making it scale a lot faster now, and along with the buff to a lot of the enemies, it means that each wave is going to be a lot more important, and you don't have to set aside like 4 or 5 hours just to do a massive arena push if you're pushing for like 1,000 waves or something like that. This is a really good change. The other change to the in-game system is with the monolith and corruption system. So firstly, one of the big things with monolith corruption, so corruption is kind of like a infinitely scaling difficulty. Within the monolith system, you would have these modifiers that came along, and the modifiers made more of an impact than the overall corruption. So if you were at 1000 corruption but had no modifiers, that was easier than like 300 corruption with a lot of modifiers in a lot of cases. So it was very hard to have a level of like standardization or normalization with the corruption. They're shifting that power from the modifiers over to the corruption. So if someone's pushing high corruption, it's usually an indication that that build is good and not that they just don't have a lot of modifiers on when they're filming and playing through that. Great change. The other aspect of the corruption pushing, and I'm so happy for this, is the corruption scaling. Now there is a good reason to push corruption, and it's so funny because I just made a video saying, hey, don't worry, there's like no real end game or anything like that, and that's still true, like as in the end game kind of serves itself, but in this case there's a good reason to actually push corruption, and that is because you are going to get better items. So the one that is most of interest is the average legendary potential, and the Weaver's Will now scales slightly with corruption. And this is awesome because it means that you are rewarded for playing a good build and gearing up. You can get those legendary potentials, which is often the hallmark of your final best in slot gearing, and that's really exciting. So I love that change. That's really good. Really happy with that. Another funny little thing, and I'm just so happy about this that I had to call it out. Let me see if I can find it. Is it other changes? Just scroll down here. No mechanics. Bosses are no longer pushable. So this is going to make Reign of Dragons a lot easier. The Emperor Corpses being pushable was one of the most frustrating experiences, especially for melee players. So very glad to see that one. All right, now I want to go into some of the skills that cover the top builds. A lot of this has been covered kind of in the past by the community and stuff like that. A little bit's kind of come out from the devs, but I just wanted to cover it anyway. If you look at the ladder now, you're going to see it like all the top arena ranks basically with some of these mechanics going on, and a lot of them are being brought down because there's a lot of bug interactions and stuff like that. And the first one is the zombies. Firstly, the big zombie is getting nerfed when it's cast indirectly, and this is a really good change because if you there's so many ways to cast giant zombie indirectly that it was just like such a free talent, and you didn't often need to pay the mana cost for it or anything like that. So now it only happens 10% of the time. And to go along with that, if you're aware of the bug where zombies could cast abilities that will consume a mana even when you're negative mana, and then that combined with ward per missing mana, you could just get like millions of ward and be unkillable. So like all the top arena runs are people abusing this bug, and it's definitely abusing, and just being completely unkillable, and only a matter of like their own patience to how far they can push in the arena, which is kind of funny. Good to see that one's toned down. And the next one is the strength of the Rune Master. Rune Master is the most recent class to come out, so obviously it's got, you know, less balance passes on it. Probably the big one to go, and this is a great change, is the Prepared Wards node in Frostwall. So Frostwall, you could get effectively 100% uptime on Flame Ward. Flame Ward is such a powerful defensive skill, so this is really good that this is no longer the case. It puts Flame Ward back into a really powerful defensive skill that has the downside of uptime. It shouldn't, yeah, you know, it just did so much for defensive that when you press that button, you feel so safe. Now it's like you can't cheat it out and just have a permanent Flame Ward and you know, a 10 times multiplier on your defensive EHP capabilities, which is really, really good. So Rune Masters were also dominating the arena for that reason, and so this is going to take a lot of those top arena builds out that are, you know, abusing this particular node here. Rune Master did get touched in other ways. The other one is probably the Runic Invocation. So a few things happened here. All the bugs with Runic Invocation have kind of been looked at, so I'll actually just scroll down here. Interesting enough, one thing that didn't get nerfed was the Frost Guard. And yes, this did get nerfed, but the 30% damage reduction left untouched, as well as the huge burst of ward. So like, oh, not sure about that one. It feels really odd that there's like 40 odd Runic Invocations and only one of them is defensive, and it's such a powerful defensive skill. I would have really got rid of that one and reworked it so that like it almost doesn't exist in its own format, or those defensive abilities are spread across different Runic Invocations, if that makes sense. However, the Hydrohedron has got nerfed, which is good, and it's just brought down the damage numbers just to be a little bit more in line, so it's probably more on par with like Plasma Orb. Plasma Orb's great, and there's a few other really good ones out there like Ball Lightning that, you know, can do a good deal of damage. So overall, the damage has been a little bit more fixed. One of the bug fixes with it is that the Elemental Penetration node is no longer doing 7 times more than necessary. However, to clarify this, all the nodes that say, like, you know, bonus damage per rune, all that kind of stuff has been fixed so that now works. So you won't be doing as much damage as before, but at least you have a Runic Invocation tree that actually does something as well. I think Runic Invocation is still going to be a great ability. And if you look through the Rune Master, I'm not going to cover all the nodes, but basically all the sources of ward generation have just been toned down a little bit. So it's going to be a little bit harder for Rune Master to just get like a free 20k ward for, you know, effectively just playing their build without much investment. So that is good. It's going to bring it down a little bit. I would still like to see the Frost Guard nerfed a little bit, but that's okay. We'll see how it lies. Rune Master is going to be incredibly strong on launch. Next one is the Summon Wolf, in particular the Squirrels. Squirrels were doing a lot of unintended damage. When you put on the helmets, apparently it like said that it was you're meant to do less damage, and if you see it here, realistically it wasn't doing anything, so you were just doubling the amount of pets you had, which is doubling the amount of damage. And apparently there was some other unintended interactions, so the Summon Wolves are going to be brought down a little bit. Summon Squirrels was just like a crazy boss killer. This is really good because you don't want something that's just going to like completely obliterate bosses. They're not as strong as an arena build, but it's good that this has kind of been brought down a little bit. Summon Squirrels will still be really, really strong. I wouldn't fret about them too much. And it also makes Summon Wolf, not Squirrel, a lot more appealing of an option. So there's a few changes there. Really good to see. Another one is probably the Shadow Daggers nerf. So just a simple one there because it just does so much damage. Just being nerfed for the like 18th time in a row, it's still pretty bloody strong, because that is a lot of base damage, that's a lot of added damage effectiveness. It has 2 sources of flat, and it always crits. It's still going to do a lot of damage even at that rank. So that's kind of like the 3 kind of top builds people generally look towards. Is like the Shadow Daggers, Umbral Blade stuff. They're looking like Squirrels, they're looking Rune Master, and the bug abusers abusing the zombies. So all of those have been addressed in some way, which is really good to see. So now I'm just going to go on to the items. First item of note, Mad Alchemist Ladle has been brought down. So what this is doing now is that it no longer grants 8% damage per negative ailment. It's only 6%. And it says up to 8. What that's meant to say is up to 8 ailments. So there is a cap of 6% more damage times 8. So 48, if my maths is correct. More damage is the total you're going to get. That is still really good, especially if you have other sources of flat damage in your build. But it means that it's not just like an instant, this is always going to be the best thing to use. It's going to be a really good early game item as well. I think it's just in a really good spot at the moment. A lot of builds will still want it because it can be, just as cheap as finding an exalted Dragonhorn wand or something like that, and you can use it a lot earlier. But it's not just like the best in slot if you're doing spell damage and can use this item and don't need to use another item for your build, which is really good. The next one I'm going to bring up is a bit of a weird one. So we've got the Twisted Heart of Eukeros. This is just such a staple, and it was included in my last video. You might think, oh, this is a huge nerf. It's really not, because the thing that prevents the Twisted Heart of Eukeros from, gaining ward isn't the amount of conversion, because all you're going to do is just cast as much. So your ramp is going to be slower, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a point where the amount of health you're converting to ward is matching up with the amount of health you're gaining in that kind of time frame. So if you're casting like 5 times a second, you've got like a 0.2 second period between your casts. If you can gain that much health, 8% of your health, that's kind of where it's going to hover, and you're just going to convert all that health to ward. It's just going to be a longer ramp, if that makes sense. What I would have said is it was better if it retained these numbers, but it didn't convert all your health. It converted like 50 to 75%. Hope they look at that in the future. Still a really strong item, so I just wanted to kind of address that there. And there's probably one other final bug fix I'm just going to look at, which is the Death Rattle bug fix. Let's see. We'll get there. That one didn't seem to work. Fixed the affixes from the Death Rattle stacking. So you could like equip, unequip, equip, unequip, and the one line of text there that says you gain 30 health when one of your minions dies. That used to stack, and you didn't even need to wear the Death Rattle amulet. So there's a lot of cheated entries where people were using like the Spriggan pet to instantly heal you to full, and it basically just made you immortal to have all these cheat deaths and stuff like that. So it's good that that one has been fixed. All right, guys, that's probably the things that have stood out to me the most. If you've got any other things that you think, oh my God, this is awesome, leave a comment down below. Otherwise, I can't wait to see you guys on launch in hours from now.